cord to this computer. Okay. All right. So we'll go through it pretty quickly. If everybody keep their mics muted unless they are talking, that'll help everybody hear what's going on. Please note that as we go through the presentation, it's designed for the rules that are within the Volleyball Canada rulebook, and that each age class does have some variations, specifically around the substitution rules. So what you're going to see going through the presentation is what is played at our high level or by default. 16 U's and higher should all be the same, maybe even the 15 U's. But under that, there'll be a little bit of difference in how they are allowed to sub, but how it's recorded on the score sheet is the same. So for those of you that are at different age groups. All right, so to start off, we'll all use Volleyball Canada score sheets. There's different variations. It doesn't really matter for what we're doing. I even think Volleyball Canada has thrown out the ISET program where they were trying to use tablets. So you'll be back to paper for those that go to nationals as well. But that obviously could change. When we're recording, blue is a preferred ink, black is acceptable. No one's gonna fault you for either of those two colors. Because it's a legal document, everything is written in block letters, so everything's capital. Once again, some referees might harp on that more than others, but you can go through it. And just remember that this PowerPoint is designed for referees, so these are things that we'd have to do if we were being graded on it. So for example, if I do a score sheet, I'm going to use a ruler or a straight edge. Everybody has one, an ID card, a credit card. Those are all long enough. But if you don't have a ruler, no one's going to give you a hard time for the lines being a little bit crooked or not straight, but it is a requirement. So pre-match, some of the responsibilities, name of the competition, and we'll go through what that is. Most of you, for this case, it's going to be a premier of some sort. So Premier 1, Premier 2, you can add the age class, the location, date, time, and by time it's scheduled start time. These are all things ahead that you can write in. You're going to check with the coaches about scratches. So now for VA, that's a little bit easier. They should be handing you rosters that are verified that we're going to go off of. You'll need to record those. Hopefully we'll get stickers, so stickers can work instead of having to write them out. But if there isn't a sticker, they do have to be written out. There are, so it says there's 5 leaders. So in the rule book, on the bench, there can be 5 non-players registered. If you've noted at all in any of the VA communications, there's only 4. And the reason for that is the 5th person must be a registered doctor or medical professional. And so in most cases, no one ever has that 5th one. And so you won't see that. The leaders will all be printed and verified on the rostered paper that is given. Then you're going to also have to get the referees' names. So in most of our cases, that'll only be the first referee. In some games, you might get 2. So in a nutshell, this is what a score sheet looks like. Everything we just talked about is the stuff that goes into the top corner up here where the arrow is pointing. So you can see the name of the competition, city, all that information. And we'll go through it step by step. So this is the first thing that you're going to do. First thing you sit down, all this information is known, with the exception of the A or B towards the end. So if we filled this out, name of the competition is going to be your premier, whatever it is. Then the specific name isn't as relevant as it is to have something there. City, gym. So this one was at the U of A. You could be at Saville, at Calgary, wherever. Pool, if known, if you happen to know what pool you're in and what match number. Often those aren't known, so they can be left blank. Country should always be Canada. Your division, so men or women. And then age class. So you can see they're all listed there. Date and time, note that the time is in 24-hour clock. and that is the scheduled time. So whatever it says on the draw that the game is supposed to start, so in this case it's 6:30, we're going to put that in, even if the game is either late or early. Usually they're not early, they're going to be late. There's a process if the game doesn't start at the scheduled time, and we'll go over that later. So we put in the 2 team names. Hopefully you can get that from the teams, or if you know them. The key thing about the team names is that whatever you use as a team name, that you use that same team name throughout the entire score sheet. Don't go UOA in one and then ALB in the next set or the next space. A note there that the A and B will be done after. I'm going to teach it this way. This year might be different. So the A and B is decided by what side of the court the team starts on. So the A is always, as a scorer, it'll always be on your left, and B is always on your right. The teams have the choice to choose a side, and so that's why it's not filled in at the beginning. Depending on protocols as we go forward, I feel there's going to be a high likelihood that we will not be changing sides. And so because of that, A and B may be known right away, but there's nothing wrong waiting until the referee tells you which side the teams are going to stay on. So this is what it looks like when it's all completed. And like I said, the pool or phase and match number may be blank, but the rest of it should be all filled in before the game starts. Team rosters. So that's the part over where the arrow is pointing there in the corner. If you're going to write them out, they should be written down in numeric order, and they're written with the first name, with their first letter of their first name, and then their whole last name. So that's where it says A.player. In my case, that would be T.rot. We'll go through all of them. There should be enough space for everybody. If you happen to get a score sheet with a roster that has the libero in the roster, that's not necessary, because at our age, we can redesignate the libero in every set. Internationally, they cannot. It is specified in the roster, and that's the only libero that they can have for the game. So it's a little bit different at higher levels. But as you can see, the teams are UA, UOA, and UOC, same as what they were on the page before.
Travis, can I
Yes.
just interrupt there for a sec? All the team managers, tomorrow, Melissa and I will send you the template for making roster stickers. So just, you can make a note, again, just in numerical order, all the players. We'll send you the template, and we'll leave you packs of stickers at the gym to send home with your kids. So each of the team managers can get these made up for their team. So hopefully most of the time you won't have to write all of these out.
That is the goal. And we do like it when it doesn't need to be written out. Sometimes things are missing, usually not the players. Usually if you run into missing stuff, it's going to be perhaps in the coaches. Maybe the stickers only have the head coach, they don't have the other people. The other people will be on that verified roster. And I talk about the verified roster in the past tense. I'm assuming that the process is going to be the same as it was before COVID, but once again, there might be some differences that happen there. My understanding is we shouldn't have to be doing any of the NCCP number or any of that kind of stuff for checking cards, that's all done now in Sport Lomo. And so if the person's on the roster, then that's all checked. But the referees will be given processes and stuff that they'll have to check, and it's not your responsibility to know that. So as I said, there's the people that can be listed on the bench. We don't specify trainer anymore. It's 2 assistant coaches. It's not really relevant whose name you put where, with the exception of the head coach. The head coach must be in that coaching position. And that will be the person that has to sign the roster here, and then has to sign at nationals, has to sign at the end if they haven't changed that process. So during VA, we follow the rule book rules. So the team captain signs at the beginning, and the verifies the results at the end. But Volleyball Canada in the past has had the coach do the verification at the end. So just note that that might change at nationals. This is what I was talking about with the NCCP number. There used to be a place where we could put it in. I'm not sure which way they're going to do it. Presumably it won't won't be needed here. If you're filling out your own stickers for our teams, put the number right on the sticker so that it's there in case someone wants it. It's less work for everybody involved. Okay, so once you're done, the idea is to get all of the rosters done before the coin toss. Not always possible, but we do our best. Once it's done at the coin toss, the captains will sign. Once again, it'll depend on how processes are going to go, on what things COVID might change. But typically the captains are going to sign when they're done the coin toss, and then the referees are going to get the coaches to sign sometime before the start of the game. I did get a pop-up that there was a hand raised.
Sorry, yes. Question from Jillian. If someone is missing, can we strike through the name, or do we have to print out by hand instead?
If someone is missing, leave them on the roster if they don't have extra players. So you're allowed to carry 15, I believe, on a team, but you can only roster 12. So in those cases, you're going to have to count how many and get the coach to cross off the extras. A coach may choose to cross off people that aren't there. This is more important at the younger levels because of the fair play rules. Everybody on the roster is required to play. So it's if they're missing, there's a process there for indicating that so that they're not on there. If your team is 12 or less, then there's no need to scratch them if you're not playing fair play rules, so they can stay. Scratching off a sticker is perfectly acceptable as well. You don't need to write them out. You should in very few cases have to write them out. By the time we get to the premiers, everybody should have stickers. It's fairly common. Does that answer that question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, so then the A's and B's get filled in as per before. That'll be decided by who's on what side. You can see that the captains, they are required to circle their numbers. So you might get it that a coach has them pre-circled, that it comes with a circle on it already. But if it's not, make sure that the captain circles their number while they're signing. And that's what that circle indicates. So the referees, for most of our VA stuff, we're just going to worry about a first referee. We might get lucky and there's a second. You'll notice that here we spell out our whole names. If I was the first referee, it would be Travis Rott. Unlike the rosters, it's only one letter. Your name would be the scorer. Whoever from the other team that's doing the flipping would be the assistant scorer. And because we have players doing lines, those are usually left blank. Okay. So just one note is that make sure that we get that from the referees before the game starts. All this stuff should be done, but prior to the game starting. Now the fun stuff. So when we start a match, this is set one, but every set looks the same. You'll notice that we now know who's serving and receiving. That's been given to us by the referee after the coin toss. We put an X. I guess I should point that out is that we always put X's anywhere when we're doing the age, class, the gender, and in this case, the serve receive, that we're always going to use an X. So we'll X out the serve and the receive. In this case, the U of A is the B team and they're receiving. U of C is serving and they are on the A. And we put an X in that first box at the bottom. So we'll go over what each box is for. They are numbered. It's hard to see in this. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at a real score sheet. Those section at the bottom is for the service rotation, and they are numbered 1 through 8, I believe. Modifications of the score sheet may choose that, but there are 8 boxes on this example. Okay. So the conclusion of the warm-up, coach from each team will submit a lineup. The referee may choose to take that and verify it. The more senior the referee, the more likely they're going to do that. If not, you can take it directly from the coach. Once the lineup is submitted, no further changes can be made to that lineup. There are things that I'll do as a referee. For example, if a coach hands in their lineup while warm-up is still going on, I may just decide to hold on to that for safekeeping and then only submit it for recording on the score sheet after all warmups are completed. The reason for that is a coach that hasn't experienced an injury during warmup, if you've submitted it earlier, now they're stuck into having to do substitutions, where if we haven't recorded it and we're just holding it for them, then we can give it back to them and ask them to give us a new one. More senior coaches won't give you one until their portion of the warm-up is completed. That process is what I would do as a referee. Some referees are going to give you different instructions. If a referee instructs you to write it down, then we write it down and go ahead, and the referee deals with all those kind of extra things. But as a rule, as soon as it's been submitted, that is official and it goes back in. This is what it'll look like. There'll be different things on there. They can look different ways. They can have a pre-printed set number. They might just be a blank piece of paper because they don't have any left. Volleyball Alberta generally provides lineup cards at the scores table for them to use, which hopefully they will. That'll make some things easier. Either way, whether or not they're marked or not, the person on the bottom, or the number on the bottom right, will always be the position 1, and it'll go around. 2 is up, and it kind of goes clockwise around. Think of it as the first person to serve is number 1, the second person to serve is number 2. So if you know your service rotation, the referee should be checking this, but it has to be initialed. This one has a signature, but initials are what is required. This one has a libero, so for those age classes that are allowed to play with a libero, sometimes coaches will forget. So if it's blank, it might be worth giving it back to the referee to have them ask if there is a libero, especially if you see someone that's dressed as or warming up as a libero. And the team name and the set number, those are the things that are important. But once you get it, this is what you're going to kind of look at. So the first thing that we do is we have to check that all of the numbers on the lineup are actually players registered on the roster. This may come into play more with teams that carry more than 12. Perhaps they make an error. So the first thing you're going to do is make sure 8 is on the roster, 13, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 19. If there is an error, then it's given back to the referee and says that this player isn't rostered, and they'll fix it before the game starts. Once we've verified everyone that's on the lineup is on the roster, then we're going to put the players into the set under the starting players. So that's that first row at the top. This kind of cuts it off, but to the left of set 1, they describe what each row is for, or which group of rows. So the first one's going to say starters, and that's where you're going to put it in. Position 1 is first all the way across, and 19 is the libero, and that goes in the bottom corner. Pretty straightforward. The last thing we got to do is you flip it over and initial the back. So that's your last step. You've completed checking and verifying that the players are right, and you've recorded them, and then you initial the back. Referees may double check to make sure it's correct. Doing that will save issues later if there happens to be a recording issue. If you can't read a number, or you're unable to, or you've forgotten what goes where, the referee should be able to instruct you on how to complete it. I'm going to just stop there for a second. Is everybody clear on how to record the game? Is there anything in the chats?
Nothing in the chat.
Okay. All right, not hearing anything, we'll go on. So we talked about the X and the stuff at the bottom. So at the bottom is called the service rotation. As a scorer, it's your job to keep track of who is serving and who is the right server. We open the box by putting a check mark in it. So that's if when 8 goes back to serve, as soon as they've served the ball, you're going to put a check mark that the arrow is pointing to open the box. When they finish their service, so when they lose serve and the other team starts serving, you're going to write the team score in that box. So you can see how it's growing. This isn't that 8 served and got 3 points and 13 served and got 6 points. In this case, 8 did get 3 points. Then they got the ball back, making it 5. 13 served another point before they lost it and went back. So as we go along, these numbers are going to increase till we get to a final score of 25 to something or 2 points plus. You'll notice that they're using this first top left block under each person. So this block is for the first server, that's number 8. This one is for number 13. The first block is number 1. As we go along, you'll see that this one below it is number 2. So this would be the second time they came around to serve, and then so on. So as it goes back and forth, team gets points. We're going to cross them off as they're getting them. The tally as it's running score here and over here, and we'll keep going through it until we get to the end. So in the event of a wrong player serving, it's important that you as the scorer identify that it's improper, but let it happen. In indoor volleyball, that is a fault that they're supposed to be aware of. So we let them make the fault, and then you've got to immediately notify the referee. If you have a second referee, it's easy. If you only have a first referee, you might have to stand up, but you'll need to get their attention to indicate that it's the wrong server. I will highlight that if you are even a little bit unsure if it was the right one, it's better to stop the game and make sure that it's right than it is to let it go a point or two and then figure out that it's wrong. The reason for that is if teams have done stuff wrong and then we figure out that it's wrong later, what ends up happening is we take points away from the team that was wrong and we let the other team keep their points and we fix it and then we keep going. So you could see how if in a rotation something went wrong and we went all the way around and then caught it, this could greatly impact the outcome of a set where teams could lose many, many, many points. So at any point, if you feel that that's wrong, it's better to stop the match and for you to be wrong and just replay it than it is for you to be right and have the game go on. So I will highlight that piece, that it is always better to stop the game. Okay, so in the event of a rotation fault, that is the wrong server went back. The following is done. You'll notice that there's no check mark in the box, and then you will mark the score after. Okay, so in this case, maybe 13 went and served again, or they rotated twice and 3 went and served, but 2 didn't. So you'll see there's no check mark and that the box has a score of 7 in it, indicating that they lost that serve because of it. And we go on, put the check mark on the other side because they're back and they did serve the ball right. Okay, so in this case, where we would circle it, this is the case where 5 started serving and they were right. And then say they served 2 or 3 in a row, and then they rotated because they thought they needed to after a long rally, and 7 went back. And that was the wrong server, but they'd already started. That's what the circle's for. Doesn't happen very often, that one. If you remember this process, you'll make a referee very happy. And the score sheet will look great, but just be aware that's what that is for. All right, any questions about recording the service and the server? That's where you're going to spend most of your time, is back and forth, checking off the running score and then checking the server and putting in the team score at the end. Okay, not hearing anything. We'll go on to substitutions. So like I said at the beginning, your specific age class will have specific rules around substitutions. If you're playing triple ball, you can only do substitutions and timeouts in between the 3-ball sequence. You're not allowed to do substitutions without an injury. So there's a lot of different rules that get put in with fair play and triple ball. So if you're in one of those age classes, just be aware that things are a little bit different. The referee should know the process, and so should the coaches. But the more people that understand the process, the more likely it'll be done right. If you do have questions and you're in those categories, feel free to reach out to me and I can give you your specific rules. For the purpose of this case, this will be the 6 sub limited rule that we play. Basically, it's the 6 means that there can be 6 exchanges. So whoever I can't get an example here. What are they going to do? Oh, they're not going to tell me. So let's say 7 goes in for 6. That exchange is 1 exchange. The next time when they change, that's 2. So they get a total of 6 of those exchanges at the line, and then they're done. The limited means that a starter can come off the court and a starter can go back on the court, but then they must stay for the remainder of the game. So if you hear different combinations of that, for example, high school plays a 12 sub unlimited. So that means all 12 can be that same combination. So no matter what you hear, you've only got those, you got the number of exchanges, and then whether or not a starter can take, how many of those they can take, okay? So if Team B is requesting a substitution, number 12 enters the substitution zone. We won't have a second referee or a buzzer. The first referee will authorize this, but with a whistle and a signal. So the player is going to come into the substitution zone. They're going to stand there. The person on the floor is going to come up to the line. They should stand where you can see both of their numbers. Then you're going to record it and you'll hold up 2 hands. So let's see how many sides I went through. So 12 is a legal sub. So the first thing you're going to do is make sure that they're on the roster. They're recorded. Then you're going to let it go. The referee will let them go onto the court. If you have an assistant scorer that is talking to you, they'll say something, or you can instruct them to say something similar to 7 is replaced by 12. The score is 15-18. The reason we read it in that order is we read the player on the court first, because that's the number you're looking for on the score sheet. Who they're replaced by, you can see that's written in the box immediately below, right here. And then the score, you start with their team score and then the other team. So this team here has 15 and this team has 18. That's when that one went in. Okay, once you have completed the substitution, you've written it down, it's all legal. You'll raise both of your hands palm forward to indicate to the referee that you are completed it and they can resume play of the game. This is really good to do. Some referees are better at waiting than others, but I would always go through the process. That way, we're not trying to guess whether or not you're still trying to record it or find it or if something's wrong. So once you've got it all written down, you hold up your hands, palms to the referee, and they'll know that they can go on at that point in time. After the second sub goes back in, so in this case, 7 goes back in for 12. The score at the time was 20-22. You will circle the 12. That's because of that limited rule. That 12 is no longer able to enter the game again. And so by circling it, if you see 12 running up and it's got a circle around it, it's much easier to identify that that is not allowed and that you would indicate that that is not a legal substitution. All right, any questions about substitutions?
Nothing here.
Okay. Timeouts. This is probably the easiest one. Oops, computer's lagging. Okay, so the coach is going to request a timeout. In this case, it's Team A. Team A's score is 22, B is 21. You will record that in the area below the running points with a T in the middle. And you once again will record the team that's calling it first and then the other team score after. Okay. The second timeout will go right below it. The first one wasn't effective in this case, and they called the second one. So when the set is over, so we finished the set, The last service has been completed and the rally's been completed. And you can see that Team A, the UFC, was serving at the time, and they served it into the net or out of bounds in this case. So you still have to record the 23 because that's how many points this team had, and you have to record the final score of the other team. So in this case, you would rotate to number 2 going back to serve again, but number 2 doesn't have to serve. So there's no check mark. It's just the number that gets written in to indicate that this set was won on a lost serve. Okay. The last thing you're going to do is circle the final scores in the service rotation. And then you're going to put hourglasses, so an X with the top and the bottom, through the remaining points that were left in the tally. One thing that I skipped at the beginning is you have to put the start time of each set. So they would have put this start time in, the 18:30. Ideally, it's the same time. I'll let you know what you need to do if it's different, but there's a place where we need to write. And then at the end of the set, once the 25th point has been awarded, you're going to write in the time that it ended. So this screen is probably the most important. This is what it looks like when it's finished. Each set will look the same, with the exception of a deciding set, a third set in our case. That one will be a little bit different, but this is the image that you want to see when you're all completed. So second set, we're going to write in the team, serve and receive, stays on the same side of the net because the teams have changed. If we're not changing, then obviously the other team will have to, the serve changes, not the teams. The score sheets will most likely be built with A and B swapping by default. So if we're not changing, then you're going to need to cross out the A and B and switch them so that you keep the team on the right side of the court matching your score sheet. So in this example, the U of A and the U of C switch sides. If they were to stay on the same sides, you would write U of A and U of C in the opposite boxes, and you would change the A and the B that were predefined. And then obviously, instead of serve and receive staying on the same side of the court, serve and receive would change so that the other team served first. Okay.
Travis, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is it the right side of the scorekeepers or the right side of the officials?
Yours.
Of you,
So,
mine.
yep.
Okay.
In this case, if I was sitting at the table and looking at it, U of A would be on my left-hand side and the U of C would be on the right. So this is where it gets confusing. If they're not changing sides, you would keep them the same because we don't want you having to record actions for the team on the left on the right box. We want the left team and the left box. Good question. So the startup is the same. You're going to check the roster. You're going to record all of the starters from the lineup. And you're going to record the time that the set starts. But conveniently, we know that in volleyball, there is always 3 minutes between sets. So you're just going to take the end of the last one, add 3 minutes and write it in. Okay, so now we're going to go on to a deciding set. So this one will be interesting if they don't change sides. So I'm going to go through it once with normal, and then I'll go through it once where they don't change sides. So in this event, they're going to stay on the sides that they're on. You'll notice in this case that the A and the B circle is empty. That's because the captains would have had the decision to choose a side. Most facilities that we'll be in will probably be in, won't matter, or our skill level maybe won't make a difference. But the reason that's there is if there's something weird in the gym. So maybe there's a basketball hoop on one side that hangs over the court, but not on the other. That might be a reason that a team chooses one side over the other, and that's why that's there. is to balance that out in a deciding set. Okay, so you're going to fill in the names of the team, the A and the B, and then once the toss is done, you're going to fill in the serve, the receive. You'll X out the box for the first person in the receiving team, and you'll record all of the starters for that set in the box after verifying that they're on the roster. You'll put the start time of the set in the top left, 3 minutes after the last one finished. And then we're going to start with the first. So there's 3 boxes. We're going to start with the first 2. So we keep everything the same. The process is the same. We'll go through everything else, but you'll notice that there's only 8 points on this side. In volleyball, in a deciding set, we change sides after the first team has reached 8 points. So either this one will reach 8 or this one will. And at that point in time, the teams will change sides. As they change sides, you're going to write the score of the team on the left. So in this case, it's 7. Up into this box, it says points at change, 7. You will have already copied the starters that existed on this side over, but you won't copy anything else that's been written on this side. You will leave it blank. The reason for that is that this set, if I was to take these 2 outside ones, lay them on top of each other so that one was transparent, there should only be a pen on players' numbers. You shouldn't have 2 7s checked or 2 8s checked, or have this box filled in and this one over here filled in the same way. If this one was serving, you would have a checkbox here. This would be empty. And over here under 7, you would just write in the 7 when it was done. So that would indicate that he started serving over here and he finished serving over here. That's probably the most confusing part. So I'll ask if anybody has any questions about that. So like I said, the only thing that you're going to copy across is players' numbers. In this case, there was a sub, so that player's number gets copied across, but you'll notice that the score of that sub was not, because it's recorded over here. Now we'll continue to play the game as you were. You'll see that 12 was subbed back in. We left the top one blank and we wrote the score below. This sub happened after the change, so it's at the top. And we just kept going until we get to the end. So this is explaining what I just talked about. You'll notice that on the timeout here, that U of A had a timeout in the first before the change, and then they had a timeout at the end after the change, and you've left that blank. Okay. So now when we're finished, we're not going to do anything with the extra points here that aren't checked, because this one tells us what they were when they changed. We X out the remaining points in the running tally over here on both sides. And we go on. If we don't change sides, my current recommendation would be that we don't use this first box at all. You would put one team in here, and you would put one team in here, and you would do it like a regular set. There may be different guidance that comes out from Volleyball Alberta as our premier tournaments start. And if that is the case, the referees will give it to you. But at this point in time, that's how I would do that. Otherwise, it's going to be backwards at some point in time in that set for you. So if we forget this first part over here, you still have to fill in the team name, BA, receive, serve, receive. This stuff all at the top has to get filled in. But then I would only write the team B in on this side. There's no points at change. And you would just use this box here for team A and this box for team B, just like you did in a regular set, sets 1 or 2. Is that clear? Does that make sense? And that way the teams stay matched with you. The team on the left is on your left box and the team on the right is on your right box. Okay, that's good. So the results. So at the bottom of the box in between the approvals and the roster is a box for results. So in between the two sets, the end of set 1 and the beginning of set 2, or set 2 and 3, you're going to fill in this results box. So at the beginning of the game, you can record the abbreviations for the team. This can be done right early. And then we're going to do each set. So I don't like how this one's done because you should do it set at a time, not all the points. So you would, in between set 1 and 2, you would fill in these points. So the P is points, they do write it in there, 23, 25. The second one is for win or loss. So they either lost the set or they won the set. The next one is substitutions. So you're going to count the number of switches. So if you were to go back to the set boxes, you would count the number of scores that are written down. So if there were 3 exchanges at the net, then you would write 3. If there were 2, you write 2, and so on. So this should be never more than 6, using a 6 limited sub rule. Timeouts, they either took 0, 1, or 2, write those all in. And you're gonna, like I said, you'll do it 1 row at a time in between each set. So you're gonna do this one between 1 and 2. This one happens between 2 and 3. This one happens between 3 and 4, if you're doing a full 5-setter. If we're only doing 3 sets and the sheet has a full 5, you would just leave these ones blank. Most of Volleyball Alberta's score sheet should only have 3 sets on them. In the middle, we write the duration. So you'll notice that there was a start time and an end time that we wrote in. That is a duration. It does not include the 3 minutes in between each set, and that goes up in here. So the first one was 25 minutes long from the first serve to the 25th point, and so on down the row. In the last one, so below, in our case, it'll be like this 4th square. In this case, there's below the 5th. You would total up each of the columns. So they took 6 timeouts. They had 0 subs, 2 sets 1. You do their total points, their total duration. So this total set duration is the sum of these. So just make note that this does not include the time in between each set. So this one was 25 minutes long. There were 3 minutes in between the set. Then there was a 19-minute set. That'll become relevant later. So you're going to do that across the whole bottom. And then this is the match start time. So this is the box that was filled at the beginning of set 1. You'll put in here. This is the match end time. So this is the time that you put in the box on the last set as the end time. And this is the total duration. So that's the difference between the match start time and the match end time. And if you did the math, you'll notice that this one is bigger than this one. And that's because we don't, in the second one, we add those 3 minutes in. So the double check on time is this number should be this number plus the set duration. So in our case, there'll be either 3 minutes more or 6 minutes more. And that's how you can double check if the math was correct. In a lot of people's cases, that'll be the math on their phone, but some people can do that in their head. We're going to fill in the box at the bottom that says winner and the number of sets. I would recommend that you do this before completing the rest of the results. So as soon as the game is over, write the winner in that box. It was 2 games to 1 or 2 games to 0, because it'll only be a best of 3. This is the part that the captain should be verifying. As the winning team, as the winning captain, you're going to want to make sure your name is in that box before you sign. And because of the time frames that I think we're going to see this year, it's going to be pretty quick turnovers on kicking people out and not having to chase people down and all that kind of stuff, which is common. So if you can get that written in right away, as soon as the captains come off from their acknowledgement to the other team, then you can get them to sign and leave. If you have time, you can continue to work on the math before they show up. But that's this winner piece is important. Okay, so that's kind of what it looks like when it's done. Improper requests, you probably won't get any of these. If you understand what they are, that's great. A referee will tell you if there's an improper request. It's not really relevant to understand it. Basically, it's a request for a timeout or a substitution that they're not allowed to have, as long as it doesn't delay the game. So they get one freebie, and then after that, it's a delay. Some score sheets have a box for it. You can see up here at the top of the sanctions that it exists. On this score sheet, you can check off, you put the X through A or B, depending who gets it. If they don't have that, then it needs to be written in the remarks box. So improper request. This will be done at the request of the referee. So you won't need to do this on your own. Anything that's recorded in the sanctions or in the remarks, the referee will request that you do that and tell you what to type in there. Okay. Just gonna look ahead. Okay. So yeah, you don't need to know. This is the form of requests. Recording sanctions. So feel free to ask for assistance. Oops. If you don't know how to record this or you're not comfortable or all this kind of stuff. So their sanctions are all in the bottom left. The referee should help you with this. At any point in time in the game, if something happens, you don't know how to record it, and to keep the game flowing, if you had a scrap piece of paper, all you need to write down is who it was, what set it was, and the score. If you keep that, then we can fill it out after, or when there's a stop or a timeout or something like that. Or you can hold up the game and make sure that it's recorded right before we move on. That is appropriate. When we get into sanctions at VA events, there should be referee development team members that will assist with this as needed if they're available. If not, the referee will come and make sure that it's all done correctly. But it's important that we do it correct. So delay warnings, these are team things. You can see there's delay warnings and delay penalties. You would just simply put the D. It is described at the bottom of the sanctions in this box what everything is for. So a D is for delay. So you got the delay warning and a delay penalty. You got the team that it was for, the set, and the score, the team that received the penalty first. Okay. So in the rest of the boxes, we'll have for team staff, there's C for coach, AC for assistant coach, trainer, medic. And then if it's a player, you would use their number. Okay. So in this case, they're writing down warnings. Let's see if I can skip the animations. There we go. So if it's not a delay, it's an actual sanction. Number 2 in this case got a warning. That is a yellow card. It gets written down like this: 2, team B, set, points. A team only gets 1 warning, so you should only ever see one of these. Now, that being said, the referee is responsible for doing that. They shouldn't give another one. If they do give a second one, you can ask them what to do, because they're now not doing things the right way, or remind them that they've already given a warning to that team and that they need to now go to the next step. So you can see that there's only 2 warnings. And then after that, number 4 did something unsportsmanlike. In addition, they received a penalty. So that's a red card. Team B, set 2. The coach from team A did something. Very unlikely that you're going to do much inner sanctions at all. At most, you'll probably be doing the warning column, either delays or to players. And on the odd occasion, you might get to a penalty. It's very, very rare to get any further than that. Okay, any questions about how to record a sanction? All right. Come on. So when recording a penalty, penalties result in a loss of serve to the other team. So when you're recording it, you have to record it on the score sheet the same kind of way, right? If number 4 didn't actually serve, you're going to write the number without the check mark on there because they didn't serve. The only additional thing that you're going to do is you'll notice that this number is checked off and circled. So the circle here indicates that that point was earned as a result of a penalty to the other team. That's all that means. So if you happen to forget and you circle at the end of the set, the 25 on this side, and the referee makes fun of you, that's because it makes him look bad. It looks like he ended the game on a red card. So at the end of the game, we circle the 25 in the service order. On a penalty, we circle the point in the running points. Okay. Any questions about sanctions at all? Okay, remarks. A lot of this stuff will all be guided by the referee. So improper requests will be recorded. If there's a blood technical timeout, those are recorded in here. Changing of uniforms, protests, exceptional substitutions. You might see more exceptional substitutions with the fair play rule for those age classes, or an unusual delay. In all of these cases, a referee should guide you as to what you need to record. Okay. At the end, the referee used to initial it. We don't initial it anymore. So it's not really relevant. They'll do what they need to do. The one thing I wanted to say about remarks, though, that you can do on your own is if the game is scheduled to start at 6:30 and it's late because the last game was long and you're starting at 6:45. So the information at the top says 6:30. When the set started, that first time in the top left, that one's going to say 6:45. Because those two numbers are different, you're going to have to explain why. So it's simply going into the remarks and saying that game started late due to prior match or something to that effect. So anytime there's an anomaly in the score sheet, that's what the remarks are for. If we can't figure out what happened by just recording the game, we have to explain why it's different. And so a game late would be something that you could do on your own. To that end, if a game is a minute or 2 or 5 late, always record the start of the set at the same time to avoid you having to write out something why it was late. Because even if it's late a minute, then you have to record that it was late because of some reason. Maybe the referee didn't know how to count or something happened or whatever. Signatures. As soon as my computer catches up, there we go. So we had all the approvals, the name of the people that needed to approve it. So now we go to the bottom and we'll sign from the bottom up. So your assistant scorer will initial or to sign, you will sign, then the captains will sign, second referee signs, and the first referee signs. So the order of the first 4, so the scorer, the assistant scorer, and the captains, isn't typically that crucial. The referees will not sign until everything is completed. So technically what's happening is as people verify the score sheet is done correctly, they sign the score sheet. So the scorer and the assistant scorer built it, so they're the first ones to then sign it. The captains are signing to verify in essence that the right winner is at the bottom. They don't usually look at anything else. And to be honest, they don't ever look at that. Then the second referee and first referee will probably take the sheet. They will go through every set, go through every box, and they will make sure that it was recorded appropriately. And then they will sign in that order, second and first referee. If a score sheet is done incorrectly, they are the ones that are responsible. It doesn't tend to be as big of a deal at VA events, but at nationals, it can make a huge difference. If, for example, the wrong team got written down as the winner, they've had to make phone calls at 2 a.m. to indicate to teams that they don't play at 2, they play at 8. And so it's really important that at least that results box is done perfect, because it does have implications to teams in reseeding type tournaments or where they play next. Okay, score sheet's complete. It'll look something like that. So I'm going to leave this one up and let it open it to questions. Is there anything that maybe I went over too fast, or you had more questions about? I'm going to stop the recording there.